Hey friends, it's Renay, coming to you with an older, unreleased episode. Diana and I got together last summer to discuss some of the 2024 books we were looking forward to. While in production, the US did what the US does best, and embarrassed ourselves. Even though I finished editing it late, I still wanted to share the episode and our past bookish excitement with you. After you listen, let us know what 2024 books you enjoyed. We'd love to hear from you. Enjoy the episode. Today, our main topic is the books we are looking forward to that are coming out in the second half of 2024. These are some of my favorite episodes to do because I get to see all the books that Diana is excited about, and I always inevitably add something to my TBR from her lists. Diana, do you want to go first?
Vice versa. I'm always looking forward to see what other folks are talking about. Yeah, I can go first.
Yeah.
So the first thing I have on my list is The Nightward by R.S.A. Garcia. This is a sci fantasy debut novel. I do love a sci fantasy. And it's being described as Caribbean mythology meets The Witcher, introducing a world where women warrior magicians rule, and a child princess and her bodyguard must flee an attempted coup and evade a wave of darkness sent to kill her. So I have not read anything by R.S.A. Garcia before, but I do enjoy The Witcher, at least the third video game. I haven't watched the show or read the books. And I like the premise of like bodyguard and young child. And like I said, I enjoy sci fantasy. So this one sounded really interesting. And I like the inclusion of Caribbean mythology because I feel like it's not something we see a whole lot of. So I'm interested to see how Garcia crafts the story.
This book has a incredible cover. If you have not looked at the cover of this book, go look it up immediately.
It's so pretty. So the next one I have on my list is The Ending Fire by Saara El-Arifi. This is the third book in the Ending Fire trilogy, and it's set in a world inspired by the mythology of Africa and Arabia. And in the first book, you're introduced to this world in three main characters. You have Scylla, who is essentially a failed chosen one. So in this world, there are three types of blood. There's red blood, which is the ruling class, blue bloods, which is the lower class, and ghost bloods, which are essentially the lowest caste. And because of stuff that happened in the past, they have their tongues cut out and their hands cut off when they're infants. And so they have that enforced disability. And in this world, it's understood that only the red bloods can do blood magic. And so a bunch of blue bloods like went in and kidnapped red bloods and put in blue blood babies, basically like swapped babies. And so Honor, who's one of the other main characters, is one of those. And then you have Hassa, who is a ghost blood and who has her own agenda. The characters are messy. It does its own take on the competition trope, which I thought was interesting as well. And like I said, I really loved Scylla as kind of this failed chosen one. So I haven't read book 2 yet, but I'm still looking forward to book 3. Hopefully it will stick the landing. Next, I have The City in Glass by Nghi. This is her new standalone novel. The basic premise is there is a demon and angels come and conquer the city. I just saw that Nghi had a new book. I'm like, yes, I will put that on my list. And I think the cover is also really gorgeous. I really like Nghi's writing. Her Singing Hills cycle is one of my favorite ongoing series. I love how she writes the characters. I love the genre shifts between each novella and how each novella is approaching different types of stories, but with its own unique spin. So this was just kind of like an auto ad for me in terms of things I'm looking forward to.
Again, I swear, I'm going to read Nghi this year. It's going to happen. I'm going to do it. I'm going to come back. You're going to be so proud of me when I do it. You're going to be like, yay, you did it. Good job. I'm going to do it. I promise.
I believe in you.
What's your next one?
Metal from Heaven by August Clarke. The blurb is for fans of The Princess Bride and Gideon the Ninth, a bloody lesbian revenge tale and political fantasy set in a glittering world transformed by industrial change and simmering class warfare. Looking at the description, it sounds like someone who was growing up in a depressed working class town where there's a massacre and the survivor vows vengeance and becomes a highwaywoman, and she's working to seek revenge for the person who killed her family. C.L. Clarke, who wrote The Unbroken, blurbed this and said it was amazing and it was really good. And it just sounds like my vibe of fantasy, and the cover is really pretty as well. So hopefully it's something that I like. Then I have The Maid and the Crocodile by Jordan Ifueko. This is set in the same world as her Raybear technology, and we're following a young woman named Small Sade who needs a job, and she has vitiligo, she has a clubbed foot, and she can essentially eat curses or eat bad luck, I think, and she becomes involved with a god called the Crocodile. I read the Raybearer duology earlier this year and I really loved it. It's some of the best YA that I've read in recent years. I really love Ifueko's writing and how she approaches topics like class inequality. What does it mean to do lasting change? Does change start from the top or from the bottom? Like, also, how do we make reparations for historical wrongs? So I really loved how she wrote and how she approached those topics. So when I saw she had this book coming out, I'm like, yes, absolutely, I will get it right away. And then the final book I have on my list is Long Live Evil. This is by Saara Rees Brennan. This is her adult debut. It's essentially an isekai novel where you're following this woman, Ray, who's dying, and then she wakes up in her favorite book series, but she is the villain. I don't know if she's trying to like alter the villain's fate or like trying to do her best to keep in character, but this just sounds super interesting. I haven't read Saara Rees Brennan in a number of years, but I remember liking some of her YA, and I like her Twitter presence as well.
I read The Other Lands by Saara Rees Brennan. This is a YA portal fantasy, and it was incredible. The character in that book is so unlikable, and you get to watch him grow up. It's just so well done. So I'm extremely interested to see what she does with her adult work. I almost put this on my list, in fact, but then I saw you had it on, so I replaced it.
Well, that is my list.
I'm going to end up adding all of these. Okay, so my books, I have a lot, and I cheated at the end and made a list of like honorable mentions, which I'm not going to talk about, but I am going to say the title and the author. First up on my list is Countess by Suzan Palumbo. This book is a queer retelling of the Count of Monte Cristo, but in space. Now, I am not like a super big fan of retellings of like classic literature, but I do really like the Count of Monte Cristo, so I'm like, okay, I like it, and it's in space, and it's queer. I'm pretty sure I saw this on Blue Sky because somebody posted the cover, and the cover is fire. It's so good.
I'm really picky with retelling, so I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this because I read a different Count of Monte Cristo, or I started reading a different Count of Monte Cristo retelling and ended up DNFing it. I was getting really frustrated with it.
Well, I will let you know what I think, because out of all like the classic literature that gets adapted, The Count of Monte Cristo is one that when I was a kid, I loved it. It is only a novella, so I'm curious if it's going to like really lean into the retelling element or if it's just going to kind of borrow it. And I think both ways are totally valid, but I think just borrowing elements for shorter stuff may make it be more successful, but we shall see. My next book is How to Piss Off Men, 106 Things to Say to Shatter the Male Ego by Prue. Prue is just a random white dude who I found in my exploration of TikTok in 2022. And so I've been following his work because he has a whole series about how to piss off men, which is why this became a book. I, in the past, have worked with like a lot of men, and I work in politics, so I, again, work with a lot of men. And the mileage that I got out of some of these in the last 2 years is incredible. So like examples of things that I've used from his series. Damn, she sounds awesome. And I said this in the context of a man at an event. He and his wife were at my table. Then she got up, and as soon as she was still in, I could still see her. This man started complaining about his wife in front of me, a perfect stranger that he just met. And he's just like, man, she's so talkative and loud. I wish she would just shut up sometimes. And he was like, she's always going on and on about like these events, and I just don't care. Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Jesus.
So I was just like, wow, she sounds really awesome though. She's very passionate. He did not know how to react. Another one that I've really used that I get a lot of mileage out of is, are you being mean because it makes you feel important? I use this in the most annoying Valley Girl uptalk that I can manage. And I think a dude got so angry at me that he just stopped doing organizing in our area. Like, I have not seen him since. I don't know where he is. I don't know if he moved away. I don't know. I've just never seen him again. Another one I liked, I've only used this once because I got called out for it. I hurt somebody's feelings. So I'm sorry, person whose feelings I hurt. But they were just getting extremely loud and aggressive. I don't know how else to say. They were loud and aggressive. And I just said, hey, can we pause your hissy fit for a moment? You thought I might have murdered this person's family, their entire family, the whole thing, like all the way down the generational line. I murdered them all. Sometimes I just get a little frustrated, and in those cases, some of these can come in handy. Not all of them are appropriate for like professional settings. I'm very excited to see what new ways to piss off men that he puts in his book, in case they are applicable to political organizing where sexist microaggressions from quote-unquote male allies thrives. The next book on my list is called Sorcery and Small Magics by Maiga Doocy. This book seems like it's a rivals to friends or lovers. It is about a character who can do small magic, but if he messes with anything big, like big spells, the spells go wrong somehow. So he stays away from anything that's too challenging. And then he ends up magically bound to another character. And this character was apparently using forbidden magic. And so they must team up to go on a quest into a magical wood to get unbound without revealing to anybody else that they were dabbling in magic they shouldn't have been. On this quest, they do some shenanigans and there may be feelings. And this just sounds like a super delightful romp. My next book is The Mountain Crown by Karin Lowachee. A lot of people may be familiar with Lowachee's science fiction. She wrote the War Child books. I love her science fiction. It's military science fiction. It's really political. There's a lot of very intricate character work in them. I am always like beating the drum of these books, so people will check them out. I haven't read any of her fantasy yet. For The Mountain Crown, there are two people from warring states, and they have to retrieve a special type of dragon by teaming up. So we have a grudging team up, and there's dragons. So I'm intrigued, but this looks like a novella, but the blurb itself makes it sound like it should be a lot longer. And I'm starting to get super suspicious that publishers are like, we want this to be at novella length because they get to pay less per word and not because it's the appropriate length for the story the author is trying to tell. I'm suspicious. The next book on my list is The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. This caught my eye because it was comp to Sangu Mandanna's work. This is another story where our character is staying away from larger, more explosive magic by only telling like small fortunes to people. But then there is a team up. Again, there's a theme with my stuff. A team up. I love a team up. With a mostly reformed thief, an ex-mercenary, a baker, and a magical cat. And they have to go and find a lost child. They had me when they cited Mandanna's work. I was hooked in when they mentioned the magical cat. And the blurb is giving found family vibes, and I hope I'm right. Please let me have some found family vibes. I love them.
I'm hopeful for that one, that it will hit on the cozy fantasy side for me, because sometimes cozy fantasy just doesn't work.
Our pal Forest of Glory writes about cozy fantasy and some of the problems with the genre and how it's marketed and how people are trying to like take advantage of the popularity. Again, my thing with cozy fantasy is that I am a little suspicious of the cozy fantasy vibes being tangled up with commerce and capitalism. And I say that to be clear that there's a difference between commerce and capitalism. I'm sorry, but running a business is a lot of work. This doesn't sound relaxing at all.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I had a number of issues with Legends and Lattes, but that was one of them.
I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I do have a lot of cozy stuff on my list for the fall, so fingers crossed that some of it hits. So my last book is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandanna. So I loved The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches so much. I love that book. It was very cozy. There were found family vibes, and I was very excited to see another book by this author, but I was not excited about the release date because I don't understand why it's in December. Like, I am in my Raruka Salt era over this book. Why December? Why? This book is about Saara, who lost most of her magic in a bit of accidental necromancy. Whoops.
As you do.
But there may be a book to help her restore her magic. There is apparently a talking fox in this book. Again, magical creature. I'm in. And there is a grumpy historian love interest that is also a second chance romance after they had sort of a failed one-night stand type situation. So the relationship in The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches was so good. I loved it so much. Mandanna also has a YA science fiction series that I missed somehow. I didn't even know this existed until I clicked on her author name when I was looking up this book. And her science fiction YA series starts with A Spark of White Fire, and that came out in 2018. What do you mean you have a science fiction YA series? I'm in. Let's go. So I have a lot of cozy stuff, potentially cozy stuff, on my list. I do have some honorable mentions that I'm not going to talk about, but I wanted to read the titles and the authors. Glass Houses by Madeline Ashby, Out of the Drowning Deep by A.C. Wise, and House of Frank by K. Synclaire. The last book, House of Frank, is from Bindery Books, which is a publishing imprint type thing that's come out of book influencers on TikTok. And I've been really interested because I follow a few of the people who are getting involved with Bindery. They have been talking about books for a long time, and now they're getting into this Bindery stuff. And the creator that I think that we both follow that got into it first was Marie Ness, and you follow Marie Ness.
Yeah, so I'm a member of Marie Ness's Bindery, it functions at the base level a bit like a Patreon, and then creators have an option to create their own imprint. They'll come up with a name. They'll work with folks from Bindery to come up with a logo. So Marie Ness's is called Rees, and she recently announced the first acquisition called the Unmapping. And I don't know how other folks who have Binderies do it, but the way Marie Ness does it is, she'll let us know hey, these are the pitches that I'm reading. She'll talk about them. She won't give us names and authors. She'll give us a description. It could be something pretty vague that gives us the flavor of the book. And then we'll discuss what did we like? What did we not like? And then with the Unmapping, we're seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff as well.
That sounds so cool. So it's almost like fan-based crowdsourced publishing, but then they work with a professional distribution type thing.
Yeah, some of the other Bindery books have been getting deals abroad. So one of them, I think it's Strange Beasts, got picked up in the UK, I think by Hotterscape, and it's going to be a Goldsboro, one of their monthly books.
It's really cool. It's really cool to see publishing changing in these different ways. The one thing that's missing from my list is it doesn't seem like there is a ton of non-James S.A. Corey space opera coming out in the second half of the year, unless I'm just somehow missing some.
I haven't been seeing a lot.
No, you too?
Yeah.
I'm no, it can't be over yet. If people know of a space opera that I'm just missing, that I'm not seeing in my searches, if you know about it, please email in at fangirlhappyhour@gmail.com and tell me about it, because I don't want to miss any space opera. It's my favorite. So that wraps up our anticipated reads. So our next section is what we've been reading. Diana, what have you been putting into the eyeballs?
All right. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is a book I finished a couple of weeks ago, and it has been living in my head ever since. And it is Penance by Eliza Clarke. So I started reading this because some folks in Marie Ness's Discord had read it and were raving about it. And they were saying the writing's really good, the story's really good, but it also sucker sucker punch them. It's like, oh, I understood all of these Tumblr references. I hate this. The premise, this is a very different book than what I normally read too. So the premise is, it's like a book within a book, and it's like a true crime story of the murder of this British schoolgirl the night of Brexit. The book starts by letting us know that the author got in trouble for certain, like, essentially bribing his sources, like paying to get things that he shouldn't have had access to, making up things. So we know from the start that there's going to be a lot of ambiguity with what we're reading, that it's not necessarily the true story. And the premise is, there's the author, I think it's Alec Corelli. He had been a journalist who got swept up in the phone hacking scandal, and his daughter died by suicide, and he's like, he got in trouble with some of the stuff in his previous books, and so he's trying to make a comeback with this one, and so he's investigating this murder. And it's going into teenage girls just kind of being the worst possible people with each other. It's getting into class, it's getting into British racism, it's getting into the serial killer fandoms on Tumblr. Like, there are certain parts of this book where if you were on Tumblr in the mid 2010s, you're like, oh my god, like, there are certain things that are just very familiar. It is really good. Like, I finished the book and like had to lay down on the floor and stare at the ceiling for a bit to just kind of process it, and then recommended it to a bunch of other people just because I'm like, this is fantastic.
Is this a thriller?
I would say it's lit fic more than anything else. Like, it's not a thriller. Like, we know at the start, like, who did the murder. So it's broken down into essentially looking at 4 different girls. So the 3 girls who committed the murder, and then one who was accidentally accused because of her family having ties to organized crime and being the ex of one of the killers.
I've been seeing this book everywhere, but I didn't know what it was about because, again, I don't really do thrillers or lit fic. I really stay in my lane over here in the science fiction and fantasy section, not really venturing out. I'm not brave. If I'm reading lit fic, it's because Jenny has recommended it to me. She has said, this is good and you may like this, try it. And that's how I get most of my lit fic recs. It's from our pal Jenny. But I have been seeing this mentioned a lot of places.
Like, it's this very scathing look at true crime and like what goes into true crime, but it's also like this examination of being a teenage girl and being involved in fandoms and like what happens when it can kind of spin out of control. One of the things she does is make up a fake school shooting that one of the girls is part of the fandom for. And like reading it, I'm like, oh god, I'm getting flashbacks to serial killer fandom discourse. It's very interesting, but also definitely look up content warnings for it.
Well, handily, Storygraph has all of those for you, and I will just go and I will check it out, and I will read the blurb and see if I want to give it a try, because it sounds pretty interesting. I have like complicated feelings about true crime. It seems like every time I come into contact with true crime fandom, it's super gross, and it makes me feel not good.
Yeah, this one is very much kind of looking into that problem that you're describing. The next book I read is kind of like I needed to detox from Penance. So I read a nonfiction book. It is called The Dinosaur Artist, Obsession, Betrayal, and the Quest for the Ultimate Trophy by Paige Williams. This kind of fits in with I like true crime when it's not like death and murdery. And so this story of a man who got into fossil hunting and fossil selling. He ends up getting in trouble because there are certain countries where you're not allowed to remove fossils from the country. Like, any fossils that are discovered there are property of the state, essentially. And that's the case with Mongolia, which is considered to have like one of the best dinosaur fields in the world. Like, there's just a lot of different species, different places where you can excavate. He starts smuggling them out because bigger fossils sell for more. And so that's the starting point, but the author also goes in on like the history of fossils and fossil hunting and going into talking about the role that amateurs play versus the professionals and the tension there, as well as the politics around it, and talks a little bit about Sue the dinosaur. So it's really interesting. My main critique, though, is there are times where it just got so tangity and it felt like we really lost the plot. Like there was this whole side thing about the president of Mongolia and his ties to ALEC and the NRA and Dominion voting and how and like all of that. I'm like, okay, this could have easily been condensed to a couple of pages instead of being a whole chapter. Like we really don't need to understand, like to know this much about this, the president's ties to the far right apparatus of American politics. It's really not necessary to go that in depth. That was really annoying, but I thought the stuff about like the fossil trade and how unregulated it is and just all of that was really, really fascinating. So the last thing that I finished recently it's The Sky on Fire by Jen Lyons. And this is pitched as like heist meets dragon riders, but I found it wasn't like as much on the heist component. So essentially you're following this character, Anrod. So in this world, there are dragons, they're intelligent, but they can't use magic without corrupting themselves. And so they rely on humans, their dragon riders, to do magic. Any human who lives in the mountain cities who can use magic but isn't bonded with a dragon gets shunted off into the church. And then you have the deep, which are the jungles below the mountains that has its own culture. Anarad, she was originally from the Skylands, but was exiled and like condemned to death because she was accused of stealing from a vault. And she gets found by these adventurers who are also trying to steal from the dragon's vault. And so she is trying to figure out, like, do I do this? How do I deal with the trauma that happened to me, with who I am now? There's some polyamory. It's really interesting. I enjoyed it. Like, it wasn't a perfect book. I think I would put it like at a 3.75. Like, I definitely have things that I would nitpick over, but overall I thought it was a lot of fun. I don't know if this is the case, but there are certain things with like why the dragons bond with humans that, at least to me, read like the author read Fourth Wing and was like, okay, nothing about this dragon writing school makes any sense. So let's just put a pin in that and write something about it. Again, I don't know if that's the case because Fourth Wing came out May of last year, and I think this was announced before that, or before Fourth Wing came out, or like right after Fourth Wing came out. But anyway, I thought this was a better dragon book.
It seems like dragons are making a comeback. I don't know if they really ever left, but it feels like there's more dragon books like being talked about that are like coming up or that have come out. Is that just me?
I think so.
Okay. Just me then. All right. I feel like there's more dragons than normal.
So that's what I've been reading.
I have not been reading a ton of books. I've actually sort of been reading more articles and newsletters and stuff, but the books that I have recently read, most of them I've liked. The first one is the first book in a novella series called Grievers by Adrienne Marie Brown. Grievers is about a fictional Detroit that is suffering from an outbreak of a syndrome called H8. People stop in their tracks. Doesn't matter if they're working, if they're sitting, if they're talking to somebody, they stop mid-sentence and they just stop functioning. It's like they're comatose, but they're still conscious. The book follows Dune as her mother catches. It's never really made clear. And it starts spreading all across Detroit. We see through Dune's perspective the organizing ties that her family had in the community, especially as it relates to Black organizing in particular. We see how the government fails to protect people of Detroit. We see how the city sort of falls apart. We watch Dune struggle with losing her community, but even as she loses her community, she starts reconnecting with the parts that are left behind, like the work that her mother did, the work that her father did. She's left only with her grandmother, who is mute, and dying, not of the syndrome, but just of old age. And sometimes the book hints like just heartbreak over like not over losing her son and not being able to feel her organizing dreams and whatever else. It's a very quiet interior novella. I found it to be both extremely sad but also extremely touching and heartbreaking as we watch this young woman navigate losing a community and like, trying to figure out how she's going to survive. There are some magical realism elements that come in toward the end of the book, which I thought were really interesting, which I assume is going to be followed up on in the second book. I don't know. I really liked it. It's very thinky, but it's also short. It's only 189 pages. So if you're into apocalyptic fiction, like the breakdown of a society, I think this has a lot of good things to say. I know I missed a bunch because, again, this is very much a novella about community and connection in a Black community. So there's some stuff that I have glossed over because it's very set in that specific place in Detroit, in that context. I think I really liked it. The next book that I read was one that I read for the Hugo Awards. It was nominated for Best Related Work, The City on Mars by Kelly and Zach Weinersmith. They are looking at whether or not humans can actually go and live in space. And they look at it from like a multitude of levels, from like just basic survival to like how do we care for ourselves, how do we reproduce, where do we live, how do we get the things that we need for just basic necessities like water and air. My main complaint with this book is that I thought it was too nice to billionaires. I thought they liked Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos a little too much. They give them some shit, obviously. They don't really call them out for the fact that if we want to colonize space, first we have to figure out how to survive on the planet we got. We got to figure it out first. Like, we can't go hard enough into space. And obviously that's their thesis. They're just like, hey, we should probably just learn more, stay here, figure things out. And then once we can, instead of trickling out, we can just all blast out with a bunch of knowledge and skills and survival techniques that we've learned on our own planet instead of just trickling out and letting like capitalism do its thing in space. I also didn't like the fact that they were just like, well, company towns might not be that bad. I'm like, excuse me? Company towns aren't that bad. Are you sure? They were very like light on the critiques of company towns. Like, I would have dedicated like a full chapter. Here's why this is bad. Here's why company towns on Earth are bad. And here's why company towns in space would be extra bad because they control your air and your food and your water. Like, listen, it's bad enough on Earth. Let's not reproduce that model in space. So it was like a mixed bag. I really do agree with their thesis that we need to think about it more. Like, there's not going to be some kind of epic human habitation on Mars in the next 50 years, probably, unless something dramatic changes about our technology and the ways that we use it. They also don't talk about the thing that all this money that we're using for like space exploration. Meanwhile, people on Earth like don't have water, they don't have food, they don't have shelter. We have a climate crisis. People are going to be climate refugees. Why are we focused so much on getting out instead of making sure everybody here is taken care of? They don't really address that much. And then there is the thing that I was very appreciative that they put in, which is the stuff about reproduction. Like, how are we going to reproduce? How are we going to make sure there's genetic diversity? There needs to be more focus on women and people who can have babies and how we can help them do that more safely here. So when we go into space, we're not trying to figure it out on the fly. And we also really don't know a lot about like how space affects people long term. Those experiments are ongoing. But again, like, so much of the study has been done on cisgender male bodies. We are still complete babies in the research area on how space affects bodies. I just honestly don't think we need to be colonizing space. And they do a whole breakdown on like international law because apparently space is like under maritime law. It's a whole mess. The law part alone made those sections made my brain hurt. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even think about any of this. But I don't think a lot of people think about the law either. Interesting book. I did not vote for it in first place for the Hugo Awards. I put it like fourth or third on my ballot, I think.
That was one I meant to read for the Hugos and just didn't get around to it.
So the last book that I read was a space opera. It was called Ocean's Godori by Elaine Yu Cho. And this was a space opera adventure that had like a lot of characters. Our main character, Yoon Ocean, she is very technically competent and good at her job, but she's very closed off emotionally due to something that happened to her in the past. There are a lot of different characters, and how they interrelate are revealed over the course of the novel. So the layers of characterization in this book are immense, and there's a ton of things that go unsaid, so you kind of have to make the connections yourself and kind of determine how you feel about all the different ways that these characters engage with each other. Ocean has a friend who is like the heir to a very rich family whose family company controls like a lot of the technology that they use to like colonize space. Something happens with this friend's family, and he is framed for the murder of his whole family, and Ocean has to help him survive. So this book is very concerned with like friendship and helping people solve their problems, and it's also really concerned with like parental familial relationships as well, especially the intergenerational issues of parent-child and feeling disconnected from your parents because you also just feel disconnected from your culture. That intergenerational conflict that is really driving a lot of the emotional beats of this book. This is a space opera book because a lot of the action does take place in space and on spaceships, and I thought it was extremely interesting, although I found the ending to be a little abrupt, and I don't think this book has a sequel, but I think it could have a sequel because there's just a lot of like unanswered questions and question marks. If it was going to be a series, I would say this book is set up to be like a really neat like found family type situation, but based on like the ending that we get, I don't think you can kind of argue that. It's almost like hinting that it could, but it doesn't go that far. It's just like a temporary team up to solve a murder mystery and to prove to the world that a dude did murder his entire family. This book was very rooted in Korean culture. It actually reminded me a little bit of how Aliette de Bordard did the Zuya universe, where I think China discovers North America first and then the history spins out from there. So in Ocean's Godori, Korea reunified and then they became a space power. She really takes it to like the logical extremes, like culture-wise and how like the military situation would work, and I thought it was just really well done. So if you like how de Bordard does the shifting of history, I think you might like how Cho handles Korean culture in this book as well. So it's very much like, what if Southeast Asia was the main power in space and Korea was leading the charge? I liked it. I thought it was pretty entertaining. I do recommend it. Unfortunately for me, it seems like, well, everybody is excited for romantasy. I just want space opera adventures and romance.
I'm with you. I want more space opera.
I've also been reading a lot of Jamel Bouie. Do you read Jamel Bouie's work?
Every now and then.
I have a lot of political anxiety around everything. I really appreciate Jamel Bouie's political writing because he is so calm and reasonable, and he lays out his thoughts in such a way that you really can't get panicked, and in fact you end up feeling a little better. So he writes for the New York Times. He's an opinion columnist there. He also has an excellent TikTok account where he talks about issues and answers questions and responds to people. He knows so much. He's so knowledgeable. So I mean, it's not a book, but honestly, sometimes his videos are so long you can just kind of set it to go and then put your headphones on and do an errand and treat it like an audiobook. So technically, I guess I can't count it as reading because I'm listening to him talk about these concepts, and he is so good at just breaking it down and making it understandable and putting history in its context. He really does make me feel hopeful about the world. Listeners, I am interested to hear what books you're looking forward to and like what good books you've been reading. Obviously, love Rex. I mean, Diana loves them too, but I think I love them more. I think I can claim that. I can claim the number one fan title for recommendations. I love a good recommendation, and not only just because I might read it, but also because I love to see how excited people are about the books that they love. That really just, I don't know, it just fills me with like so much optimism. See people be excited about things that they love and books and stories they want to share. I love that. That's my favorite thing. So yeah. Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of Fangirl Happy Hour. As always, you can email us your thoughts at any time at fangirlhappyhour@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. You can find me on social media at Renay or Hey Renay, and you can find Di. Where are you on social media right now?
I'm still mostly on Twitter. I'm also a little bit on Blue Sky. It's Bookish Di, both places.
Highly recommend following Di if you like sports. Lots of sports content out there. Thank you very much for listening, y'all, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Leia, please stop yelling at me.
Leia, don't yell.
She just wants me to pay attention to her.
She's like, excuse me, mother. Mother, I must have attention.
Can you hear her?
Yes.
Oh. You're so loud.
Everybody, meet Leia. This is Diana's extremely opinionated gray kitty.
Yes. My very chunky gray kitty.
She was a runt of the litter before I sent her to Diana, and now she is very chunky, and I love her.
She's so soft.
It's Leia's debut on the pod.